Funny thing about skipping what's meant for you. People think they're dodging pain, escaping the hard road, outsmarting fate. But every shortcut comes with a toll, and the bill is always higher than you expect. You ignore the call. You look the other way. You pretend you didn't hear it, and suddenly, life isn't just difficult. It's unbearable. Because skipping the very thing designed to shape you doesn't save you. It ruins you. And the place you land when you run from your path feels a whole lot like hell. Skipping destiny multiplies the pain, and that's the part nobody wants to believe. People think that if they just step aside, dodge the challenge, close their eyes, it'll all go away. They convince themselves that ignoring what was meant for them is the safe route, the easy path. But pain doesn't disappear when you skip what's yours. It grows, it waits, it festers. And when it finally shows up again, it doesn't come back the same size. It comes back bigger, sharper, and far more vicious than before. Life isn't stupid. It knows exactly what you're running from. That thing you were supposed to face. The lesson you were supposed to learn. The fire you were meant to walk through. It doesn't just vanish because you decided to take a detour. No. It waits at the next corner, and the corner after that, and the corner after that. Each time, it grows a little heavier, a little harder, a little meaner, until one day it crashes into you, so hard you can't run anymore. That's the cost of skipping destiny. The price doubles, then triples, until you're buried under a weight you could have handled if you just faced it the first time. You've seen it, haven't you? People who keep dodging the truth. They skip the hard conversations, and years later they're drowning in resentment. They skip the responsibility, and years later they're chained to regret. They skip the pain of growth, and years later they're broken by the weight of staying the same. Skipping doesn't protect you. It poisons you. It takes the wound you didn't want to face and turns it into an infection that spreads through every part of your life. And here's the cruel joke. The first time destiny knocks, it's usually gentle. It gives you an opportunity wrapped in discomfort, a small fire that burns but doesn't destroy. If you take it, you grow. If you run, the fire grows instead. By the time it comes back, it's a blaze. You thought you were saving yourself from the heat, but you were just feeding the flames. That's why the pain multiplies. Because what you resist doesn't die. It builds strength while you're hiding from it. People love to tell themselves they'll deal with it later. Later, when they're stronger. Later, when they're ready. Later, when it's convenient. But destiny doesn't wait for your schedule. Every time you skip, you trade today's manageable pain for tomorrow's unbearable one. You think you're buying time, but you're actually paying an interest, and the debt always comes due. By the time you face it, you're no longer dealing with the problem. You're dealing with the monster it grew into. And the strangest part, deep down, you feel it in your chest, that unfinished business, that avoided battle, that skipped moment you can't outrun. You carry it like a shadow, no matter how bright the day gets. And the longer you run, the heavier it feels. You start to realize the truth. You're not escaping anything. You're dragging it with you, feeding it with your avoidance, until one day it becomes too heavy to carry another step. Skipping destiny multiplies the pain because destiny isn't optional. It's not a suggestion, not a request. It's the path that was carved for you, whether you like it or not. You can't rewrite it, you can only delay it. And every delay adds weight, sharpens the edge, deepens the cut. By the time you stop running, you'll realize you could have bled a little once. But now you're bleeding everywhere. You could have carried a small burden once, but now you're crushed under a mountain. You could have faced a flame once, but now you're standing in hell's fire. Shortcuts lead to heavier chains. And the funniest part is how sweet they look at first. A shortcut always feels like freedom in the beginning. Skip the process, dodge the grind, shave off the struggle. Who wouldn't want that? The road looks easier, faster, cleaner. But what nobody tells you is that every shortcut has strings attached, and those strings always turn into chains. You think you're saving yourself time, saving yourself pain, but you're actually locking yourself into something far heavier than the path you were meant to walk. The path you're supposed to take is rough. Yes, it's slow. It's full of broken glass and fire and nights that make you want to quit. But it's honest. It shapes you while you're walking it. Every scar, every stumble, every step gives you something. Discipline, strength, wisdom. That's the trade-off. But when you cut through the side door, you skip all of that. You skip the pain that builds you, the lessons that prepare you, the fire that purifies you. And at first it feels like you've outsmarted life. You're laughing, thinking you've beaten the system. But then the chains show up. The chains come in different forms. Regret, dependence, weakness. Regret because you know deep down you didn't earn what you got. Dependence because shortcuts usually come with a price. Someone else pulling the strings, someone else owning the path you're on. And weakness, the worst of them all, because you skipped the very process that was meant to make you unbreakable. That's the cruel twist. You think you've freed yourself by taking a shortcut, but you've just handed over your freedom to something heavier, something designed to keep you stuck. Look at anyone who's built something real. They didn't get there by shortcuts. They crawled. They bled. They took the long road, the one everyone else avoided. And that's why they're strong enough to stand when storms hit. But the shortcut crowd, they collapse the moment pressure shows up. Because shortcuts don't build you, they break you. They give you the illusion of progress, but the foundation is rotten. And when it all comes crashing down, you're left trapped inside the rubble you created. And the worst part, the chains don't just hold you back, they mock you. Every day, they whisper what could have been if you'd faced the fire instead of dodging it. Every time you struggle under the weight of consequences, you know exactly why you're there. Because you wanted easy. Because you thought you could cheat the grind. And now you're stuck in a prison made of your own decisions. That's heavier than any struggle the right path could have given you. Shortcuts promise freedom, but deliver slavery. They promise comfort, but deliver regret. They promise speed, but deliver delays that last a lifetime. Because every shortcut eventually circles back to the same lesson you tried to skip, only now it's harder, darker, and chained to a price you can't avoid. You're not moving faster. You're walking straight into a trap, one link at a time. And once those chains are on, it takes far more to break them than it would have taken to walk the original road. You spend years trying to undo what a single choice locked around you. You spend nights wishing you had faced the struggle when it was small, instead of carrying the chains it grew into. You spend a lifetime realizing the freedom you thought you were buying was actually the most expensive prison you could have built for yourself. Avoidance builds a prison of its own, and the walls are always invisible at first. You think you're escaping something: pain, confrontation, responsibility. You think by stepping aside, by pretending not to see, you're protecting yourself. But every time you avoid, you lay a brick. Every excuse another wall, every delay another bar, every denial another lock, until one day you wake up and realize you're not free at all. You're trapped inside a cell you built with your own hands. The trick is, avoidance always feels safe in the moment. Who wants to face the fire when you can walk the other way? Who wants to deal with the truth when you can distract yourself with noise? The world even applauds it sometimes. Don't stress yourself. Don't overthink. Just move on. They make it sound like avoidance is wisdom, but wisdom faces the truth. Avoidance hides from it. And whatever you hide from doesn't go away. It just grows teeth in the dark. Think about the weight you carry when you avoid something important. The conversation you never had, the decision you never made, the habit you never broke. It doesn't vanish. It lingers. It whispers at night. It pulls at your chest. And every time you look away, it digs in deeper, until the thought of facing it feels unbearable. That's how the prison gets built. Not in one dramatic moment, but brick by brick, silence by silence, skipped step by skipped step. And here's the cruel joke. The thing you're avoiding is never as heavy as the cage you build by avoiding it. The pain of facing truth is sharp, yes, but it passes. The pain of running from truth never ends. It just locks you tighter. You spend years circling the same problem, years pretending it isn't there, years patching cracks in the wall you built around yourself. And all the while, the prison grows, until you don't even remember what freedom felt like. Avoidance makes life smaller. You think you're protecting yourself from hurt, but what you're really doing is shrinking your world. Every time you say, "Not now," you close a door. Every time you say, "I can't deal with this," you put up another bar. Eventually, there's nowhere left to run. You're cornered, not by the world, but by your own refusal to face it. That's why avoidance is the cruelest kind of trap. It convinces you that you're choosing peace, while secretly locking you into torment. And the chains it builds are heavier than anything you could have carried if you had just faced the thing head on. That apology you avoided, that truth you swallowed, that step you refused to take. It doesn't get lighter with time. It gets heavier. It twists itself into guilt, into regret, into the nagging voice that never shuts up. You thought you escaped pain, but all you did was turn it into a permanent companion, a ghost that follows you everywhere you go. And the worst part, nobody sees it. From the outside, you look fine. You smile. You laugh. You play along. Nobody knows you're locked inside. Because avoidance prisons don't have visible walls. They're built inside your mind, and that makes them harder to escape than any cage with iron bars. You don't even realize how deep you are until you try to step out. And suddenly the weight of everything you avoided crashes down on you all at once. Avoidance doesn't save you. It steals from you. It steals time, energy, chances you'll never get back. It steals your courage before you even test it. It steals your freedom by convincing you that hiding is safer than fighting. And in the end, it leaves you with nothing but regret. Not because life was too hard, but because you refused to face it when you had the chance. The lesson grows darker when ignored, and that's the part most people never see coming. Life gives you warnings in whispers first, soft taps on the shoulder, little nudges that something needs to change. But people love to shrug those off, pretend they didn't feel it, pretend they didn't hear it. They think if they just keep moving, the lesson will vanish on its own. But it doesn't vanish. It waits, it sharpens, it grows teeth. And when it circles back, it doesn't come as a whisper anymore. It comes as a roar. The first time the lesson shows up, it's almost kind. It gives you a chance to fix things while they're small. It gives you the option to grow with less pain, less fire, less damage. But when you ignore it, you're basically telling life, make it louder, make it harder, make it impossible for me to miss. And life listens. The lesson grows darker, the stakes get higher, the cost doubles. What could have been handled with honesty becomes a mess soaked in lies. What could have been solved with a single step becomes a maze you can't see out of. That's how ignoring works. It never makes the problem go away. It just turns it into something far uglier. Think about the patterns you've seen. Someone ignores the pain in their body until it turns into sickness. Someone ignores the cracks in a relationship until it collapses into betrayal. Someone ignores their own bad habits until they're drowning in addiction. It always starts small, a whisper, a flicker. A lesson that could have been learned with one hard look in the mirror. But no, they skip it. They dodge it. They laugh it off. And by the time it comes back, it doesn't look like a lesson anymore. It looks like punishment. And that's the cruel trick. The lesson was never meant to destroy you. It was meant to shape you. But when you ignore it long enough, it has no choice but to break you first. Because some people only learn when the pain is unbearable, when the cost is everything, when the mirror finally shatters in their face. The darker the lesson grows, the harder it hits until it strips away every illusion you built to avoid it. The world calls it bad luck, or karma, or fate. But it's none of those things. It's simply consequence. Every ignored warning adds weight to the final blow. Every delayed step makes the fall steeper. Every closed eye makes the fire hotter. You can't outrun what was meant to teach you. You can only invite it back in a more brutal form. And the longer you hide, the darker it gets. The scariest part is how familiar it feels. People get used to ignoring, used to dodging, used to closing their ears. And by the time the lesson grows darker, they've forgotten it even started as something gentle. They only remember the chaos, the breakdown, the disaster. But deep down, they know. They remember the whisper they dismissed, the moment they could have chosen differently, the small fire they could have walked through, instead of the inferno they're standing in now. That's the price of ignoring. You don't escape the lesson. You just change its shape. You trade a whisper for a scream, a tap for a hammer, a warning for a wrecking ball. And by the time you finally look it in the eye, you realize it was always there, waiting for you, growing darker every time you pretended you didn't see it. Running away never spares the fire. It just makes it burn longer. People love to think they're clever when they avoid what's chasing them. They tell themselves, if I move fast enough, if I hide well enough, if I distract myself long enough, it'll disappear. But fire doesn't work that way. It doesn't vanish just because you turned your back. It keeps burning, keeps spreading, keeps waiting for the moment you're too tired to run. And by then, it's bigger, hotter, and far harder to face than if you just stood still and dealt with it in the beginning. The fire you refuse to face is always the one that follows you the farthest. You carry it in your chest, in your silence, in your sleepless nights. You pretend it's gone, but it's there, smoldering under the surface. It creeps into your thoughts at the worst moments. It leaks into your choices when you least expect it. That's the thing about running. You're never outrunning the fire. You're carrying it with you. Every step you take just feeds it more oxygen, and it's not just about the fire itself. It's about what it does to you while you're running. Fear becomes your companion. Anxiety becomes your heartbeat. You start shaping your whole life around what you're avoiding. Where you go, what you say, who you trust. It's all filtered through the lens of escape. You're not living anymore. You're surviving. And the fire laughs at that. Because the more you run, the weaker you get. The more you dodge, the more tired you become. And the fire, it doesn't tire. It doesn't fade. It waits. The fire could be anything. Truth, responsibility, pain, destiny. It doesn't matter what form it takes. The rule is always the same. Face it, and it burns quick but clean. Run from it, and it becomes an inferno that eats everything in its path. That's why so many people feel trapped in cycles they can't explain. They're not cursed. They're not unlucky. They're just runners, chased by the same flames they've been dodging for years. Running makes you believe you're safe in the moment, but it always costs you later. The apology you refuse to make becomes bitterness. The pain you refuse to process becomes trauma. The responsibility you refuse to accept becomes regret. All of it turns into fire that grows hotter with time. You thought you escaped, but really you only postponed the burn. And postponed fire always burns worse than present fire. The cruelest part is how tired you get before you realize it. Running feels like movement, like progress, like you're doing something. But deep down, you know you're not going anywhere. You're running in circles, trapped by the very thing you refuse to face. And when exhaustion hits, when you can't keep going, that's when the fire swallows you whole. All at once. No mercy. But imagine if you stopped. Imagine if you stood still and let the flames touch you. Yes, it would hurt. Yes, it would scar. But it would pass. Fire always passes once it has nothing left to consume. And then, you'd be free. But running doesn't give you freedom. It gives you chains made of smoke and heat. Chains you drag around until you collapse. That's why running never spares the fire. It only gives it time to grow teeth, time to surround you, time to make sure that when it finally catches up, there's nowhere left to go. Hell begins where responsibility is abandoned. That's the truth people don't like to admit. They think hell is some place beneath the ground, flames licking the sky, demons pulling strings. No, it's much simpler than that. It starts the moment you decide to shrug off what's yours to carry. The moment you say, "Not my problem," when deep down you know it is. That's when the door cracks open and the shadows start to crawl in. Responsibility is heavy, no doubt. It feels unfair, crushing even. People want to escape it because it doesn't come wrapped in pretty paper. It comes with weight, struggle, and sacrifice. But the weight of responsibility is nothing compared to the weight of regret. The minute you abandon what's yours, you trade in your power for chains. And those chains, they're forged in silence, in excuses, in lies you tell yourself just to sleep at night. That's hell. Living chained by what you refuse to face. Think about it. Every time someone drops the ball, someone else pays. You abandon your duty as a parent, a child suffers. You abandon your word as a friend, trust dies. You abandon your purpose, and your soul rots. The collapse always comes from neglect, not from weight. And people convince themselves that walking away makes life lighter. It doesn't. It makes life emptier. Lighter doesn't mean freer. It means hollow. Hollow is where hell grows. Hell isn't about flames. It's about absence. The absence of peace, the absence of joy, the absence of integrity. When you abandon responsibility, you carve holes in yourself, and you try to fill those holes with distractions, pleasures, addictions, but nothing sticks. Because the hole was never meant to be filled by those things. It was meant to be filled by the very responsibility you left behind. And until you pick it back up, the hole only widens, swallowing everything else you try to stuff inside. And here's the cruel trick. Avoiding responsibility feels good at first. You get that rush of freedom, that sigh of relief. You think, I escaped. I don't have to deal with this. But the relief is short-lived. Because what you abandon doesn't disappear. It just waits. It waits and grows into consequences, consequences that knock louder and harder the longer you ignore them. That knock at the door you don't want to answer. That's your abandoned responsibility, back to collect. And when it collects, it never comes alone. It brings pain, chaos, destruction. People think hell comes after life, but no. Hell is right here, built brick by brick, every time you dodge what's yours. It's when you can't look at yourself in the mirror anymore. It's when your word means nothing. It's when you know you've become smaller, weaker, more broken because you kept saying, "Not me," when it should have been you. That's hell. The moment you realize you've become your own enemy, your own jailer, your own executioner. Responsibility is fire. It burns, but it purifies. It hurts, but it strengthens. When you abandon it, you're not escaping the fire. You're stepping into the dark. And the dark doesn't burn, it consumes. It eats you slowly, piece by piece, until there's nothing left but ashes of who you could have been. That's why hell begins not with a crime, not with a sin, but with a shrug. With a choice to walk away from what you were meant to hold. And once you let go, the fall begins, and the climb back up feels impossible.